UFC lightweight fighter Drew Dober, aged 34, fought Bobby Green, aged 36, on December 17th. After Dober's victory, he said he would love to fight 27-year-old Jalin Turner, who is 6'3". Also, in light of the highly controversial victory of Paddy Pimblett over Jared Gordon, Drew Dober made a statement about a fight with Paddy Pimblett. Keep watching for details on these. First, Grant Dawson wants Paddy Pimblett in London to show that Scousers get knocked out. Grant Dawson is looking for a chance to quell the Paddy Pimblett-related excitement in the UFC. Dana White's Contender Series veteran Dawson had a strong 2022 season, stopping Jared Gordon and the previously unbeaten Mark Matson. He hopes to gather further momentum by defeating the increasingly well-liked Pimblett. Dawson stated he is attempting to arrange for the matchup to occur at the forthcoming UFC event in London, while responding to fan inquiries for Millions.co. Dawson declared that he would adore a matchup with Paddy. He said they are requesting that fight on March 18th in London. To show that Scousers get knocked out, he says he will travel to his home country to face Pimblett. Pimblett recently defeated Jared Gordon, a rival of Dawson's, by a controversial unanimous decision in UFC 282. While Pimblett may be the top target on his radar right now, Dawson, who is ranked number 8 in the most recent USA Today Sports/MMA Junkie lightweight rankings, has a few other opponents in mind, including a former interim champion for his upcoming fight. If that doesn't happen, Dawson declares he will go after Tony Ferguson, and if that doesn't happen, he will go after Dan Hooker. He is not sure what to say if that doesn't happen. Dawson is putting pressure on the top contenders in the division, with 7 victories and no defeats in the UFC. He might earn the momentum he needs to be considered for the lightweight title with a matchup against Pimblett, Ferguson, or Hooker. What did Drew Dober say about a fight between Makhachev and Poirier? Drew Dober is having a strong stretch of play. He has won his last 3 matches in a row by a stoppage. In fact, each of his last 6 victories was a finish. Dober's most recent defeat came in a unanimous decision against Brad Riddell last year, yet he still received a bonus for Fight of the Night. Before it, Islam Makhachev, the champion, submitted the veteran of Bellator. Dober knows the Dagestani better than anyone, having spent time in the cage with him firsthand. The 34-year-old was asked who else in the class he thought would pose a challenge for the champion in a recent interview with James Lynch, and he responded. He said that he believes Dustin Poirier might cause Makhachev some issues. That fight would be close. Actually, the decisive component in the bout would be fight IQ. At UFC 280, Makhachev easily claimed the title by submitting Charles Oliveira in the second round. Given that Duke Bronx has the most finishes in UFC history, the victory was a major coup for the Russians. Some of their victories were over some of the division's most lethal competitors, like Poirier. At UFC 284 in Perth, Makhachev will defend his championship for the first time against Alex Volkanovski. Poirier defeated Michael Chandler via submission at UFC 281, moving him up to second place in the division. The Diamond has lost 2 prior bouts for the championship, but given that he weighs 155 pounds, he may one day have a chance to challenge Makhachev for the title. Meanwhile, Dober has 8 knockouts and is trying to break Poirier's record for most lightweight victories. Dober wants to battle Chandler and has stated that he would be interested in facing Poirier because of his admiration for the Louisiana native. While Iron is actively chasing a fight with Conor McGregor, Dober has entered the fray to square off against Chandler if that doesn't materialize. It's still a competitive matchup despite the 9 spots in the rankings separating them. Chandler is renowned for being one of the sport's most competitive players and for participating in barn burners. Drew Dober is happy to fight Jalin Turner or Paddy Pimblett. Regarding his future opponent, Drew Dober is being realistic. The number 12 lightweight in the MMA fighting global rankings, Jalin Turner, was the opponent that Dober requested in his post-fight interview after defeating Bobby Green at UFC Vegas 66. This may have surprised some people, given Turner's recent success and the fact that the 27-year-old is still trying to establish his reputation. The call-out made perfect sense to Dober, who is isn't sure that going after a fighter at the top of the rankings will get him anywhere. Dober stated on the MMA Hour that if he was asked who he honestly wanted to fight, he would say Charles Oliveira or Islam Makhachev, the world's top tier. But who can he get right now? He tries to be as practical as he can because the question of who can he get has a very different answer. In the lightweight division, Dober is genuinely open to trading with anyone, and he is curious as to who the public wants to see him challenge. Turner responded quickly to the social media request, but Dober isn't sure that a social media acknowledgement makes the matchup inevitable. Other tempting choices for Dober at 155 pounds are Michael Chandler and Rafael Fiziev. However, those are two more names that might be out of Dober's reach at the moment. The most crucial thing for Dober is to locate a rival who shares his thoughts and is willing to stand and trade with him. Regarding Turner's response on Twitter, Dober said that he saw it, but everyone is willing on Twitter. He stated that until the moment comes to fight, everybody wants to be a fighter. Dober thinks Jalin Turner was a solid call-out, but he is here for the bangers, wanting to fight Michael Chandler or Fiziev. The best fights are what he is here for. Dober is confident that he will be able to handle Turner's outstanding stature if Turner does end up being booked. Dober commented that he thinks that 6'3" reach would be a problem, but he has a teammate in Neil Magny who is as tall if not taller. He said he would love to fight Turner by kickboxing, but he thinks he's going to attempt to drag him down to the ground and grapple, where he'll just show off his brown belt in jiu-jitsu. When asked if there was another emerging fighter he could be interested in before his battle with Green, Dober highlighted the divisive Paddy Pimblett. Like Dober, Pimblett went 3-0 in 2022 and soon rose to the top of the sport's most talked about competitors. In an earlier interview, Dober said that he thinks the UFC will not allow him to fight him. Pimblett was described by Dober as a cash cow. He said they're going to want to try to keep Pimblett in the UFC for as long as they can, and he is known for killing hypes. What did Drew Dober say in light of Paddy Pimblett's controversial win against Jared Gordon? Drew Dober formerly made a strong effort to get into a fight with Paddy Pimblett, but he no longer believes it would be worthwhile. Dober, who has 26 wins and 11 losses in the MMA, with 13 wins and 6 losses in the UFC, put his name in the hat in hopes of facing the rising British star when Pimblett, who has 20 wins and 3 losses in the MMA, with 4 wins and no losses in the UFC, was looking for a challenger at UFC 282. Instead of that happening, the promotion scheduled a pairing with Jared Gordon. Pimblett prevailed in the bout, but it wasn't without controversy, as the vast majority of the MMA community disapproved of his unanimous decision victory. Dober has competed inside the octagon with several of the top lightweights in the world. On December 17th at UFC Fight Night 216 at the UFC Apex, Dober faced Bobby Green and won. Pimblett hasn't faced competition on the same level as Dober, who has fought people like Islam Makhachev, Beneil Dariush, Alexander Hernandez, Terrence McKinney, and others. Dober doesn't hold out much hope that the bout will take place, given how difficult it was for Pimblett to defeat Gordon. At the UFC Fight Night 216 Media Day on Wednesday, Dober said to MMA Junkie and other reporters that UFC will not let him fight Paddy. He went on to say, "Let's be frank, we witnessed Paddy's previous fight, and we are aware of his abilities." He then said a fight with Paddy would be enjoyable. He only wants to engage in combat at the O2 Arena in London. So long as Paddy says yes, he is on board. But we are all aware Dana, the UFC, and everyone else is against that. He is aware that it would involve considerable hard climbing if the UFC agreed to grant Dober the fight. His intention would be to win the battle, but according to Dober, anyone who faces the baddie in the scorecards runs the chances of suffering the same fate as Gordon. According to Dober's assessment of the situation, the judges' decisions may have been influenced by star power. We're monitoring octagon control and efficacy, among other things, but you also need to get over star power. Therefore, it takes more than simply 5 more punches to defeat a man as big as Paddy. At the time of making this statement, Dober Dober was concentrating on his confrontation with Bobby Green, another fight that excited him. It was Green's first fight following his comeback from a U.S. anti-doping agency suspension for using a tainted supplement. While some might have wondered if Green was clean, Dober had no concerns. Dober stated that it's hard and cross-contaminated supplements are a real issue. He has noticed that. Although he believes Bobby erred, he said Bobby didn't do it on purpose. Dober doesn't believe he is up against a version of Bobby Green who has been chemically altered to increase his performance. He believes it was merely an error and he was required to receive punishment, but he doesn't believe he did it on purpose. Dober believes that Bobby is a pure, natural fighter. He's been engaged in fights for a very long time. Dober, therefore, had no concerns about that. That brings us to the end of today's video. Who do you think would win a fight between Jalin Turner and Drew Dober? Also, who do you think would win if Dober fought Pimblett? Let us know in the comment section. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you for watching.